that is there for the Agile scaling methodologies and the Agile methodologies also. So if you see the Agile process, so Agile that was formally introduced in 2001, so wherein the Agile methodology or the process is being developed. So nearly 16 people gathered together in Utah for talking, skiing, and playing other things. So their major outcome was to discuss and find out a better way to execute the projects, majorly IT projects. They decided. So the outcome is they came up with the Agile methodology. So with the Agile Manifesto. So Agile methodology is a process. So or we call it as a mindset. So where we follow based on iterations, and so in Scrum we call it as a sprint. So in different iterations, and then you go with the incremental approach. So once a particular set of features is being built, so then you go with the incremental approach. Okay, so once so in the same way, so whoever is new here and whoever attended the project management webinar, so we have discussed the various different project and development life cycle, but here you are going to see only the adaptive life cycle, which is mainly change driven, and most organizations, they are following the iteration based agile. So wherein each time box is the same size. So that is the requirement analysis, design, build, and test. So you fix that particular time box, whether it is 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks. So iteration, the time period that is considered as 2 to 4 weeks. You need to fix the iteration time as 2 to 4 weeks. So the first iteration, if you're fixing as 3 weeks, the second iteration also is 3 weeks, third iteration also is 3 weeks. So in that 3 weeks, you identify what are the features that you're going to deliver. And through that feature, what are the different user stories that each and every person is going to work on, so that you will be deciding on and that you will be working. So each time box results in a working tested feature. So after the end of the each iteration, so you will decide, you will come up with a tested feature. So now we'll see about the Agile Manifesto. So as we saw earlier, so the 16 people developed the Agile Manifesto. So these are the 4 points. So mainly they came up with. So the first point is individuals and interactions over processes and tools. So whatever is on the right side, it does not mean so you don't have to follow. So you have to follow everything, but you're giving more importance to what is on the left side than the right side. Okay. So in the waterfall or the predictive methodology, you might have given more importance to the process and tools. So whereas in Agile, in the Agile Manifesto that says you give importance to the individuals and interactions. That is more importance to the individuals. So whoever the people who are working and what their needs and expectations. So you give more importance to that than the process and tools. That does not mean so you do not follow the process or any tools. So you still follow, but you're giving more importance to this one. And working software over comprehensive documentation. So if anyone representing the IT or software industry, so you may be knowing that the documentation is the main. So any software or the app that you produce, so the customer will be asking for documentation. Yes, documentation is important, but it need not be more elaborate. So you need to be precise. So what is needed so that you put it on the documentation, but the main focus is towards the working software. But if you concentrate more on the documentation and if the software is not working, then it is not going to help out. So working software over comprehensive documentation. Then the third one is customer collaboration over contract negotiations. So customer collaboration, you collaborate with the customers very much. So, and if you see on the predictive methodology, so you will be discussing with the customers when it is needed or during the end of the phase or something. But here you interact with the customer on a day-to-day basis and to find out what they need and what is their expectations. All these things you identify. So here also it does not mean the contract negotiation is not needed. So it is needed, but to a certain extent, but more focused towards the customer collaboration. And the final thing is responding to change over following a plan. Okay, so if you see on the predictive methodology, so if you see so you are preparing the scope, time, cost, everything, and the starting itself. Okay, and the starting itself you are preparing, and based on the plan you are going to execute. So in between any change that comes, so it will be difficult to include there. And in the predictive methodologies and approaches, so what you see is that you will include various different change control board, and it has to go through various different process and approval, and then only the change is getting implemented. But here, so based on how the market scenario segments, everything that is improving and changing, so any changes that is requested, so that you try to include within your iteration, or try to include in the subsequent iterations, so where the change can be added, so the product can compete in the market. So you respond to change over rigidly following a plan. Okay. So that is the Agile Manifesto. We'll see a little bit small scenario. So one scenario I created, so we can see how it is being offered in traditional and how it is being used in Agile. So I am not, so Agile is mostly towards IT or the software segment, but what I have taken for everyone to understand is just a 3-bedroom house construction. Okay. So family is living in a rental apartment. So it's a 1-bedroom apartment. So they want to build a 3-bedroom house, and they have decided on executing that. So they have planned. So they are designing the full house, and they have prepared the full scope, so that that it has come for 6 months, and they are fixing the time and what is the cost that might have involved. So the budget they have prepared, and then they identified the risk, identified the resources, other procurement options, or what are the other things that they need to identify. So all these things that they identified. So based on what is required for the project, so that everything is done, and started the work. And in actual case, after 2 months or something, the material cost, resource cost increased, and they found out a new design, and they want to include the changes, and simultaneously the scope, time, cost, everything got changed. And overall, the project got delayed by 6 months, and they completed only by after a year. So instead of they planned for 6 months, so they completed only after a year. So that for that extra 6 months, they have paid the rent, and they received the value only after the end of the year, and not after 6 months. So this is a classic example of traditional model, so which is nothing but the predictive or the waterfall methodology. Okay. Now we'll see the same scenario in Agile, so how it is done. Okay, the same 3-bedroom house the family is going to do. So they are in the rental apartment, 1-bedroom apartment. So they want to build a house, so they are going to execute it. So they are doing the planning. So they are analyzing the cost, what they have. So the cost, then they fix the budget, and for that amount, what they have, and so within the time period, so they fixed the time for 2 months. Okay, and they also prepared the high-level plans. The high-level plan is they need a 3-bedroom house. Okay, and the 2 months plan, what they have prepared is 1-bedroom plan, because they are already staying in a 1-bedroom apartment. Now they are going to make ready a 1-bedroom apartment. So they prepared the plan. So based on the available cost and time, then the same, all the other things, whatever you did it in a project. So the same thing, they identified the risk, identified resources, and the other procurement options, everything that they identified, and started the work, executed. And in actuals, so here also, So the common market only. So the material cost. So after 1 month, they found out the material cost, resource cost increased, and they also identified some good design. So they want to include. So the changes also has occurred. And the scope, time, and cost also got changed a little bit. So initial plan, so what they just planned for 2 months, so it took one more extra month. So the value what they received was they got 1 bedroom house after 3 months. So what they planned was for 2 months, but they received it for in 3 months. So they saved nearly 9 months of rent. So once this 1 bedroom house is ready, so they moved from the rental to this house, so which they have built, and they saved 9 months of rent. Then they have planned for the plan 2. So where they decided to make it as a 2 bedroom house. With some advances and everything, and then they so after making it as a 2 bedroom house with some extra features what they included, they moved for the next plan, next release, and the value what they got is a 3 bedroom house. And then once again they moved planned, and so they planned only for 3 bedroom. Now they are able to build another first floor, and it can be given for rent. So this is a classic example of Agile. So where all the 4 releases are done and the project completed in 1 year. So they got the value for money, as well as they given it for rent also. Okay, so this about Agile. So the earlier one what we saw, so that follows the rigid plan. Okay, and the output is received at the end. So whereas here you are getting on a periodical basis, so the value for the money. So in predictive, so that is which is also called as the traditional approach, where the project needs, requirements, and constraints are understood, and the plans are developed accordingly. And mainly the plan drives the project. So based on the plan, you will be executing the project. Whereas in the agile approach, so which is also called as the modern approach, so you work collaboratively with the customer, and so whenever there is a change that is happening, so you adjust the change, and you have a proper coordination with the customer and the team. And so mainly the main focus is towards the customer and the team, and they together drive the project forward. So still they plan. So they have a plan, so but it's not a very long or rigid plan. So what is needed? So what can be done? So for that particular thing, so you're preparing the plan and executing it. Okay, and the hybrid is a combination of agile and predictive. So based on different needs, so some projects that may be following a predictive methodology, some projects may be following agile methodology, and some other projects you can do either agile or hybrid. So both approaches that you can follow. So based on organization and based on each and every project within the organization, you can decide which type of approach that you can be followed. So if some organizations, they start implementing agile, so should they fully follow agile? Might not be required. So based on different projects, so you can decide what methodology that you can follow. So it can be predictive, or it can be hybrid, or it can be an agile methodology. So in the traditional triangle, if you see, so earlier also we saw in the project management webinar, so the scope, cost, and schedule are interrelated. So if any one changes, the other one also gets changed. So whereas here you fix the schedule and the cost, and you concentrate towards the value, so you get a better value or the quality. And so the same thing gets continued for different iterations. So for the next iteration, you fix the schedule and the cost, and you deliver the value. There are various different agile methodologies. So the Scrum is one of the methodology which is very much familiar and mostly being followed. And there are other methodologies like Agile Unified Process, Lean Software Development, Feature-Driven Development, Extreme Programming, and the Disciplined Agile and Safe. So the Disciplined Agile and Safe are mostly towards the Agile scaling methodologies or frameworks. So Safe is but the scaled Agile framework. So we'll see a little bit about the Scrum framework. So in the Scrum framework, so the product owner, so who is a representative of the customer or directly the customer segment. So the product owner, he develops the product backlog. So he has different features. So what is the product that you're going to develop? So you identify different features and you develop the product backlog. And from the product backlog, so you prepare a sprint planning. So for each sprint, so if I'm going to do this sprint for 2 weeks, I am doing a sprint planning and for prepare a sprint backlog for sprint 1. Then for sprint 2, I prepare a sprint backlog. So in this sprint backlog, I decided I'll do 3 features. In sprint 2, I decided 3 features. And in sprint 3, another 2 features. So based on that, so you decide on that, and then for the sprint 1, you're doing the execution. So sprint execution, and on a daily basis, you do the daily scrum. So in the daily scrum, you meet with the team. So the scrum masters, the product owners, and the team. So they meet together and do a daily scrum and find out so what went well. So what are the hindrances that they are facing, and what issues or any risks that are that they have, and so what they are going to do today. So those type of things that they will discuss in the daily scrum. So the daily scrum is just for 15 minutes so daily. So the team will gather and speak about this one. Okay. So in some organizations, it is called as a stand-up meeting. In some, it is stand-down meeting. So either way you can decide on and you can work. And once the sprint execution gets completed, you will sometimes get a potential shippable product, or you will get a set of features. And based on that, then you do a sprint review. So sprint review, you will be deciding on so what are the different features that is there, and you will see the demo of that particular feature. And once everything is there, then you, so if it is a release, then you send it for release. Otherwise, you make it as a set of features. And in the sprint retrospective, you will decide, review, or as a team, you decide what went well, what didn't go well, and what improvements that you need. So that thing that you will be identifying in the sprint retrospective. So what you identified that, so that you will do the improvement in this next sprint, and that sprint gets continued. Okay. So in the Scrum roles and responsibilities, so a Scrum team comprises of 5 to 11 members. So it comprises of 5 to 11 members, where you have a Scrum Master, a product owner, and the development team. So the development team comprises of developers, testers, and the infrastructure team. So all these things, so whoever is needed, so they will work together, and it's a self-organizing team. So they will pick up what they want to do in that particular day from the sprint backlog, what is being decided. Okay, so the features before broken down as stories, and from that they pick up what they are going to do. And the Scrum Master role is mainly towards finding out how the team is working and how to work with the team and how to move forward. And their main other work is to remove the impediments. So any external factors that is affecting the team. So those things that they will be identifying and they be removing. And the product owner's main goal is to prioritize the product backlog in discussion with the stakeholders. And their other important role is to maximize the value of the product. And the Scrum Master and the product owner will have frequent interaction with the business owners regarding the project budget, product budget, and how to increase the values. So this is about the Scrum roles and responsibilities. So mainly the Scrum roles and responsibility will have 5 to 11 members. Okay, so each sprint. So some projects may have 2 or 3 Scrum team. So each Scrum team will be having 5 to 11 members, and they will be working together on a particular feature. So you see in the different ways how the release methodology is managed. So you same like the product backlog. So you will be doing that in each and every sprint, and before each and every sprint, you do the sprint planning and you do the execution. So that will be continuous. And so after sprint 3, you may be doing a release. So sprint 1 might have given 2 features, sprint 2 might have given 3 features, sprint 3 might have given another 1 feature. So 6 features together will form one release. So in sprint 3, you do a one release. And then further you continue to do it. And in sprint 8, you're doing another release. So the features are getting added to the product. And the sprint 10, you're doing the third release where you get the final product. So that is an incremental release. Okay. And this, the summary of what we saw on the Scrum framework is Scrum. We have roles as product owner, Scrum master, and team. And the Scrum artifacts are product backlog. So the starting you have the product owner having the full product backlog for the overall product. And for each and every sprint, you have the sprint backlog. And the measurement mechanisms for each and every sprint, you do the burn down chart, burn up chart, velocity chart. So all these things you prepare. And on the meetings part, you have the sprint planning meeting before starting off each and every sprint. And then you have the daily meeting on a daily basis for 15 minutes. And then you do the sprint review at the end of the sprint with the system demo. So this is the development hierarchy, what you see. So where you have the epics, features, stories, and tasks. So epics are the high level product requirements. And that is further broken down into different features. The features are further broken down into stories, and stories are further broken down into tasks. So epics are mostly towards the comes from the initiatives, and it's portfolio and program focused, whereas features is related to the product and solution focused, and stories and features together form the release, and stories and tasks are done at the iteration level. So whether to follow a waterfall or a predictive or an agile approach, so it decides based on the certainty or the uncertainty part. So based on the technology and the requirements of part. So if the requirements certainty is known and the technology certainty is known, whatever different technologies can be used, so you can go with the waterfall methodology. When it is getting slightly complicated and the uncertainty is getting high, so then you go with the agile approach. But if it is far from the certainties, you are not sure of what technology or not clear of the requirements, then you do a research and decide and work on waterfall or the agile approach. Okay. And those are the different, we saw the different methodologies for agile, and these are agile scaling methodologies like scaled agile, which is a safe methodology, disciplined agile, large scale scrum. So scaled agile, so which deals with the 3 factors, that is the portfolio level, program level, and the team level. And disciplined agile will have the 7 principles, and large scale scrum works based on 8 different teams, and each team will have 8 team members. Yeah, almost on time, so not do this one. So this is basically to understand how best that you can do. So the first one is so you are trying to convince all the customers, and you're giving support to all the customers. And the second one is also one by one you are giving convincing the customer. But if you concentrate one customer at a time, so then you'll be able to, so because human mind could not do the multitasking. So one customer at a time, if you do, so nearly 70 to 80% of the work can be achieved, and you increase the value. So in Agile Basics curriculum, so we cover the Agile, the Scrum Framework, Scrum events, and the different Agile tools. We'll see Agile scaling tools, and we'll also discuss about the various career paths that is available. Any questions?
Hello.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Just can we move on to slide number? There was one slide on the Scrum previous year, not
This
this.
one?
Previous to this slide.
This one?
One with the block diagrams, blocks. No, it was I could see earlier down below. Sorry, I could.
This one?
No, that was the artifact slides. Artifacts. Yeah, just below.
Yeah, this one. Yeah.
So, what are the different artifacts described here?
Yeah. So what is the product?
Can you just? I wanted to possibly if you could define product backlog exactly.
Yeah, product backlog is the overall set of features that you're going to do in that particular particular project. So that a set of features that you're going to do. So the product owner, so he develops all the features that are required for that particular product, or the project. So the set of features forms the product backlog. And from that product backlog, you take up some of the features and make it as a sprint backlog so that you're going to do for that particular sprint.
Now, in the case of a particular increment, if a planned work is not completed and the time duration gets completed, the sprint itself gets completed.
Yeah.
So in that case, the pending work has to move on to the next sprint.
Correct.
Is it correct?
Yes, correct. So in this case, you are not going to extend the current sprint. What you're going to do is you're taking the user stories and the features which you are not completed in the current sprint and moving into the next sprint. So you're doing a sprint review.
But in that case,
yeah. Yes, please.
Yeah, please continue. Yeah.
Yeah. So in this case, so you're not extending the time. So you're taking the work that has not been completed in this sprint to the next sprint.
Okay, then in that case, will it not affect the planning for the next sprint?
Yeah, it affects. So only you're doing the starting of each and every sprint, you're doing a sprint planning, right? So so there you will be deciding on, so certain things could not be completed in the previous sprint, and in the next sprint, so the previous sprint, why you could not complete, that you will be learning in the sprint review and the sprint retrospective. So that, yeah, so from that you will be learning and that you'll be applying in the next sprint. So in the sprint planning, you will be deciding. So if you're in the sprint one, if you accepted for 20 story points, so that was the main constraint that you identified. So in the next sprint, you will be deciding on 15 story points or something.
Okay. So obviously there is a possibility that we can add more resources to that sprint to cover the extra amount of work.
It might not be, because based on the previous sprint, you might have learned that you could not be able to complete. So in predictive, you will be getting the lessons learned at the end of the phase or end of the project. But here, at the end of each and every sprint, quickly you're getting to know what mistake that I'm doing. So because of what reason I was not able to complete, and that you're correcting in the next sprint. So whatever you planned, you'll be able to complete it. So maybe it's in most of the cases in the organizations, first 3 sprints will be, it will be not normal. So everyone will be running here and there and nothing will be normal. So from the 4th sprint only, mostly it will be running normally.
Okay, fine. I got your point.
Yeah. So if you have any other questions, just put it in the chat. So we are time for the next session. So we'll be answering at the end, or we'll send you the email with the answers. Okay. Okay, thank you so much. So we'll go to the next session. So next is on the Microsoft project.